You're listening to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman on the Land of Israel Network.
Hello and welcome to Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com, where, believe it or not, we are only 5 weeks ahead of the September 17th election, which may or may not be our last election of the year. And that's why it's important that there are people who are already preparing for future elections, because you never know, we could end up doing this forever. Who says? There's no law that says you have to form a government. We could end up just having elections after elections after elections, which will make the political correspondent of the Jerusalem Post very happy. So here we are, looking ahead. When people are preparing for the future, one of the ways to do it is to ensure that your people will be more politically active. And so I wrote an article in the Jerusalem Post website that I'm expanding on for print about a new organization that aims to get immigrants from English-speaking countries and their children, what are called Anglos in Israel, more politically active. Now, this organization is called Our Time Is Now, and it's an attempt to get people from a lot of different political parties that have some kind of grassroots that has an impact to be more involved. And the founder of it is the former Knesset member Dov Lipman, who is also a former radio show host on the Voice of Israel network. May God bless its memory. Dov, thank you for coming back on our show.
Thank you, Gil. It's great to be with you.
Okay, so why is our time now, Dov?
I've been involved in politics in Israel now for about 6 years, and all the time, English speakers are coming to me and saying, we have to start our own party, we have to find a way to have more influence, whether it's because of issues that are related to our community specifically, or just in general. We don't want to sit back and just watch the whole political scene and leadership play out without our involvement. And I've been analyzing and thinking and giving thought to what can we possibly do. We don't have either the numbers or a unified ideology to justify our own party. But I've been seeing over the last few years how in parties that have primaries, when people join those parties in blocks, they are able to have tremendous influence. Just as an example, there is right now an effort for vegans throughout Israel to become members of parties based on their political ideologies. So if
God forbid we carnivores, sorry Dov, have to respond to this by joining a party en masse. Okay.
That's right. So if a right-wing vegans are joining on the Likud and left-wing vegans are joining in Meretz, and their idea is join the party that they generally identify with, but then they can work on the issues that are close to their hearts within those parties. And I've spoken to party leaders, and they all said 100%, if we get a few hundred, a few thousand people as a group unified, becoming members of these parties, we can have a say, both about issues that are important to us as an Anglo community, both in terms of who the future chair people of these parties are, who the members of their Knesset lists are. So now all of a sudden, we as a community who are so politically connected and so involved don't have to sit back and just complain about things that are happening, but we can get involved as a group, be organized, and have a major say in the future of these parties, and then ultimately what those parties do once they're in the Knesset.
So you're trying to get people active as activists, not to get them to run for Knesset.
Right now, the goal is very much focused on become members of the party together with our bloc, and then we will enter the parties, all these different parties, as blocks, and have influence on the future decisions of the party. Could that one day translate into us having our own candidates in these parties? It's possible, but that's certainly not the initial goal.
So you yourself, you were a member of Knesset and Yesh Atid. Right now, you're not affiliated with any party. Do you see this as something that could help you facilitate your return to the Knesset?
I have to be honest with you right now. I am enjoying the break from politics. Gil, you're talking about how much you as a correspondent for the newspaper gain from the political process, I'm sitting back and watching it and saying, thank God I'm not part of it. I'm enjoying time with my family. I'm enjoying not have to answer questions for things that are said by everyone else in my party. I'm just able to use the platform as a former member of Knesset and do really good things for the Jewish people and for Israel. And I'm very much not at the moment looking for a way back in. Is it possible that somewhere down the road in the future, an opportunity will come? Well, I'll see, I can actually make a difference from inside more than I'm doing from the outside. That's absolutely possible. But right now, I really feel that I'm in a place where I can help the entire Anglo community galvanize itself, become organized, and get involved in what's happening in the political sphere.
So one last personal question on you, though. You're trying to get tens of thousands of Anglos to join parties, and you're not going to give a personal example by joining a party?
It's a very good question, and I'm thinking long and hard about that. At the moment, I have not decided who I am voting for in the elections, but I will absolutely make a decision in terms of a party to join as part of this effort.
Oh, wow. And so that means in the weeks ahead.
There's no doubt that if people ask me personally which party I'll be joining, I'll be happy to answer people. I'm not looking to make any kind of a major dramatic announcement, though. Right now, the focus is really on getting people to become members. And I have to tell you, it's been incredible to see the response.
Yeah, tell me about the response.
Just from your article alone, we have been flooded with emails. The email address is ILourtimeisnow@gmail.com. And we have hundreds of people just from the online article that have written to us. People either know which party they want to become a member of, or they're asking us for guidance as to which party they can become a member of. People are coming to volunteer. We are now establishing leaders of branches in every single city so they can work in their city to get people involved. And it's playing out exactly the way that I had hoped, in an organized manner, so that we can be not just becoming members of parties as individuals, but we can actually join together and make this happen.
Now, why has this never happened before, Dov?
That I can't answer. I don't know what's been thought of, not been thought of in the past. I know there have been efforts to bring Anglos together, get involved in parties. I can't answer why it hasn't happened in the past. I just know that I'm happy to see that people are interested and excited and getting involved for now.
Is it true that Anglos are among the more divided people in Israel?
There's no doubt. I'm just seeing from the responses. We absolutely have people saying, I view myself as far right. I view myself as far left. I view myself as center. We're all over the political map. But what's good to see is that there are actually solid numbers for all of those different camps, meaning the fact that we have a solid group looking to join New Right, solid group saying we're looking into Likud, solid group saying we're looking into Meretz and Labor. That's exactly what I hope would happen. And within each of those camps, there are going to be leaders who are leading the group in those camps so that when they have to make decisions one day as a group, they can come together and try to have real influence.
I don't want to embarrass anyone, but I found it interesting that when I've interviewed politicians lately, and I make a point of always asking them a question about what they would do for the voters that read the Jerusalem Post, that they don't really know how to answer that question, Dov. I interviewed a particular candidate last week, and when I asked this question, what are you going to do for the English-speaking population of Israel in order to help them if they vote for you, the politician stopped the interview and called up an English-speaking activist from the party to ask how to answer the question, which at least was making an effort, as opposed to just saying you guys are rich and you have no problems, and or you're just like every other Israeli, so it's no big deal. How should those politicians answer that question, Dov?
Well, as someone who not only sat in the Knesset and was flooded with English speakers asking for help with their issues, and has continued really to be in that role since leaving the Knesset a few years ago, there is no doubt that there are a few issues. Issue number one relates to their absorption into Israel, navigating the school system, navigating special education issues, navigating driver's license issues. We have issues related to taxation. We have issues related to people who want to make aliyah and can't because of issues related to their academic certification. Issue after issue that we can absolutely join together we can unify. And there are issues that even if people are in different camps politically, they can absolutely come together for these issues and ask and demand from their candidates once they enter the Knesset to be responsive to these issues. One other issue relates to lone soldiers, which is one which we're very sensitive to, and their needs for support, both while they're in the army, before they're in the army, after the army. These are all things that we can absolutely work on together and do bring us together. So I would hope that as we enter these parties as blocks, the politicians and the candidates will understand that these are the issues they need to work on for us.
What about Sundays off, Dov? Any hope for that? Is that something can be a banner for us?
So I worked on it quite a bit while I was in the Knesset and realized how much pushback there was, largely from the business community, the economic community. People point out that Friday in Israel is a day where things essentially shut down, and then to have another day that we can't really afford for that to happen. So I don't want to look at anybody and promise the Sundays off. One thing we were working on, which I do think there is hope for, is the possibility of one Sunday off per month. That's something which you can actually work on the economic side of it to make up for the loss that will come. So I don't want to say that that is something we can demand, but there's no doubt that that's something which we can raise to the fore.
We do have a day off that we have regularly that isn't on a Jewish holiday that brings people together from across the religious spectrum. It's called Election Day. That day I'm the only one who works and everybody else gets to have fun, and that's the equivalent that we have in Israel of Sundays in America. They have it every week. We have it every few months.
Well, Gil, I will tell you this. If enough people email us at ILourtimeisnow@gmail.com, everyone involved there will be working on Election Day as well. They'll be working within their parties. They'll be working to get their parties' votes, and it won't be such a day off. So we'll join your club.
All right, Dov, thank you so much for coming here on Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com.
Thank you so much. And again, a reminder, if you want to get involved, if you want to become a member, if you want to volunteer, ILourtimeisnow@gmail.com, and we will get you involved, and you'll actually have a say in politics in Israel.
Or start fights with Dov on Twitter. That also has been working the last 2 days.
That's right.
Okay, we'll take a break now.
Thank you.
This week on the Yishai Fleischer Show, join Yishai and Rav Mike Foyer for a road trip to Israel's north. Visit the Golan Heights, Tzfat, Tiberia, and the Jordan River.
And we're actually underneath the highway, and you can see the fish right now. This is old school, right?
This is a fishing hole of epic proportions. I just want you to know if you can picture like the reeds and the overhanging willow. I mean, it feels like a little bit of Tom Sawyer meets the Bible, right?
Right, Tom Sawyer meets the Bible.
That's the Yishai Fleischer Show on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
And we're back here on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com on Inside Israel Today, where we are looking ahead to the Israeli election in only 5 weeks, where there could potentially be a political upheaval in Israel, but to have a political upheaval in which Netanyahu can be defeated, there is one thing you need. The answer is an opponent. You can't unseat Netanyahu if you don't have somebody running against him. Wait a second, the person running against him is Benny Gantz. Well, Benny Gantz keeps on making mistakes. We had a show about this here on Inside Israel Today on June 27th that was called A General Without Elbows. You can find it there on thelandofisrael.com. I didn't expect to do another item on this again so soon, but it keeps on happening, ladies and gentlemen. So, I wrote an article on Sunday. I get a message on Sunday from the news editor of the Jerusalem Post, who happens to be my wife, telling me, leave Tisha B'Av Mincha services because Benny Gantz has just offered to form a government with Netanyahu. What? No way. I didn't get a message from Gantz saying that he's made this call, and why would he make it on Tisha B'Av, and why would he say it at all? I didn't get any push from any of the news networks that he said this. If Benny Gantz was saying that he wants to join a Netanyahu-led government, I think I would hear about it at least as quickly as others would. So then the internet of the Post sent me a headline from Ynet where the truth was that Gantz was interviewed on the Ynet website, and he was talking about what happened in May when Netanyahu was trying to form a government at the last minute with his back against the wall. And Gantz said that Netanyahu offered him half the world and anything I wanted for me to join the coalition, either just him or part of the Blue and White, maybe his Hosni Yisrael party that's part of Blue and White, maybe all of Blue and White, but he rejected all the offers. And the interviewers, yes, on the show, they kept on asking Gantz, but did Netanyahu offer you to join his government with a rotation as prime minister? And there Gantz said something that I got to admit, I had to hear the tape about 15 times before just to make sure it'd be accurate. His answer was, quote, I don't think Netanyahu took that risk on himself, but if Netanyahu wants to offer a rotation in which I go first, we can start speaking about the details. Again, I'm going to say it again because I had to listen to it 15 times. You're going to have to listen to it a second time. I don't think Netanyahu took that risk on himself, he started off by saying, in past tense, which is the correct way of answering this question. You're speaking about something that happened in May. You're speaking in past tense, right? But then he adds, in future tense. But if Netanyahu wants to offer a rotation in which I go first, we can start speaking about the details. What? He really did say that he'd join a Netanyahu-led government as long as he would be first. Now, you can clarify that by saying, okay, he doesn't really think that that would happen, that it's sarcastic, as Gantz's spokesman told me that Netanyahu is going to be the transportation minister for Benny Gantz for 2 years, or that Bibi's really going to be around. Everyone knows he's going to be thrown in jail. I don't know if he's going to be thrown in jail. And the legal system works very slowly. It can last more than 4 years. The president of Israel might very well try to force Netanyahu and Gantz to form a government together. If Gantz gets more seats than Netanyahu does because he's better at taking votes from the satellite parties than Netanyahu is this time, it's actually a pretty realistic scenario. But it's not what you say during a campaign. He's been saying all along, I won't join a government with Netanyahu because he's got 3 criminal investigations leading to indictments hanging over his head. He said that in this very interview with Ynet 4 times. Why would he say, if Netanyahu wants to offer a rotation, I'll take it as long as I go first? That really contradicts everything he said throughout this campaign, everything he said in this very interview. It upsets his voters who, I believe, are voting for Blue and White for one reason, right? It's not because of Gantz's beautiful blue eyes, and it's not because of the ideology of Blue and White, which nobody even knows. It's because of what has united all these people in Blue and White together to win 35 seats, which is 3 words: anyone but Bibi. You just said yes to Bibi. What? Now, this really surprised me because I was one of the only people that had mercy on him after he did the same thing just the week before, when you had the Central Elections Committee meeting to decide what parties are being registered, and the different representatives of each party came, and sure enough, Benny Gantz came even though he wasn't supposed to, and he said he wanted to just be there to shake the hands of the Central Elections Committee, and he was there speaking to reporters. And so when he was there, he said, when he was asked by a reporter about whether he would join a government with Netanyahu, he answered something about just doing what's right for the people of Israel. Okay. Then everybody made a very big deal of this. He's not ruling out joining a government led by Netanyahu. What do you mean? He then found out that people are talking about this, he ran back to the cameras and said, I didn't hear the question. This is my M16 year, the year where he put his M16 when he was in the army. And so after he had just answered, Israel comes first, we'll do what's best for Israel, he now changed it to say, I'm not going to join a Netanyahu-led government. He did the same thing on Sunday when he made a point of putting the YNN interview there on his Twitter and said very clearly, we're not going to join a government with Netanyahu. Well, then stop saying that you actually will. Ehud Barak said these are not mistakes. This is what he really believes. I can understand people thinking that if you keep on making this mistake. And it's not the only bad mistake he's been making lately. Last week, after the tragic murder of an IDF soldier / yeshiva student named Dvir Sorek, may God bless his memory. He was speaking there in the site of where the incident took place. And in a major gaffe, he forgot on live television the soldier's name. You can't do that. You can go to the Jerusalem Post website and you can see him looking so terrible. He said, we're here not far from the scene where this morning, Dvir, and he can't remember his last name. People had only been talking about him nonstop for hours. Now, it's not the first time he made mistakes on live television. In March, he gave an interview to Channel 12 in which he kept on repeating the name of the anchor he was talking to, Yonit Levy. He kept on saying, Yonit, Yonit, in part because he wasn't, I guess, hearing the live feed in his earpiece. That was a mistake. I felt bad back then. Back at the Knesset, that was a mistake. I felt bad. Forgetting the name of the soldier, okay, that's really, really inexcusable if you're a candidate for prime minister. There was a radio interview this week where he confused a Hebrew saying and said shalhevet instead of shaleket, which are words that sound similar, or maybe it was the other way around. The show that I did in June about how maybe Benny Gantz doesn't have it was right after he screwed up in a meeting of his blue and white faction and actually said, Bibi, the public is stupid, and immediately corrected himself and said, not stupid. It's pretty stupid to say that by mistake. In that same meeting, he said it's unacceptable that crime in Israeli Arab areas is starting to look like Chicago and Detroit. What he said was also offensive to the millions of people that live in the great American cities of Chicago and Detroit. That was a mistake. Also, that would be fine, except that he's running for prime minister, ladies and gentlemen. He's got to understand the world. And the fact that I can easily come up with 7 bad mistakes that he's made lately is very, very worrisome for those who would like to see Netanyahu defeated. Because as I said at the beginning, you cannot win an election, you cannot have a political upheaval if you don't have an opponent. There are another 35 days, wow, until the election. He better not screw up if he hopes to win. We'll be continuing to follow the screw-ups across the political spectrum of the politicians here on Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network, on the landofisrael.com. Thank you for being with us. Bye-bye.
I call for a vote.
I'm not voting for her.
Only an idiot would vote for me.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
You should know who to vote for.
Who are you going to vote for in the upcoming election? Hi, this is Josh Haston, host of Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network. Full election news and analysis that you're not going to get anywhere else. That's the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Keep it locked in.
If you vote for me, all of your wildest dreams will come true.